The Sword and Shield is a highly mobile weapon where you can block, deal slashing damage, deal blunt damage with your shield without consuming its sharpness. You have a lot of iframes on a bunch of different highly mobile attacks, and your basic attack is very mobile as well. One of the major things that's good about Sword and Shield is the fact that it has such low commitment, and you can do what essentially I like to think of as wound chasing, where if there's a wound on a monster, you kind of rotate around to that wound. So as you create wounds, or wounds are created on the monster, you can find the wound, pursue it, and then interrupt the monster while tanking damage, because you do not really take damage while you are activating wounds. So you can kind of like dynamically rotate around monsters while you attack to avoid attacks from the enemy monsters, and then of course chase wounds to help crowd control the monster while keeping yourself safe. So for your basic 4-hit combo, you have mouse 1, triangle, or Y, and you just hit that 4 times to do a basic 4-hit combo. And the nice thing about Sword and Shield is that you can move rapidly in any direction. So if I want to change directions mid-attack, I can do that. This allows you to try to passively avoid attacks. Now, in some cases, you can't passively avoid attacks. The monster still punishes you and hits you. In these cases, you're going to want to hit your block button, which is R2 on PlayStation, R on PC, or RT on Xbox. And essentially, when you guard, you can go for a perfect guard, and you can also initiate power clashes by doing this, and you can nullify or significantly reduce incoming damage. So what we're going to do is just do a basic 4-hit combo on this monster here. We're going to kind of chase him down. We're going to go for 4 hits. We want to be mindful of what the monster can do, because some monsters have like quick attacks, so if you just keep attacking, you can get punished. So we're going to want to do basic combos and then guard when we think the monster is going to attack us or the monster is going to attack. Another thing you want to do is chase wounds. So when you enter focus mode, you can go up to a wound and activate it, like with any weapon. And in the case of PC, it is shift. And in the case of other things, it is L2 plus R1 on PlayStation, LT plus RB on Xbox. And essentially activating a wound on Sword and Shield gives you brief damage immunity, because like as you're activating the wound, you typically cannot take damage, mostly because the monster can't hit you. Now, I do believe you can take damage while activating wounds from other sources, like another monster or some kind of like environmental effect, if there is some kind of damage source from that. But generally, when you activate a wound, it's pretty safe, interrupts the monster for a brief period, and it's definitely good to do in groups as well. Another combo you can do is the Perfect Rush combo. So you get into your backstep, and then you primary, and then you have to hit and click as you flash, and you'll do the Perfect Rush. So primary, we flash, and then you keep spamming primary until you launch, and then you can hit left and right click, and then you can hit left and right click again after this to do a big combo that usually you only want to do if the monster is downed. In this case, it's dead though. So at any point in time, you can hit primary and secondary to do a plunging stab to charge it, and it does this multi-hit attack that's pretty good damage, that's usually good to use when you know it's safe to use. You can kind of end up in like an attack commitment, so it's one of the few attacks that has attack commitment on Sword and Shield, but it can be pretty good, especially if the monster is downed, or if the monster is like yelling or something, and you have an opportunity. But typically what I like to do is use my sliding attack with guard plus primary while in focus mode to kind of get in there and then attack the monster from an angle while dodging. And then of course you can always play in a more perfect guard heavy play style where you just camp the monster's face and just like walk up to it, just keep whacking it, and then when it does attacks you just go for perfect guards. That's also totally viable and can work pretty well. So either you can be like evasive, where you're kind of like avoiding attacks while attacking, or you can just be like in their face, go for perfect guards, go for guards. Now going for perfect guards does require that you know the monster's animations and attacks. So like you want to know the timing better, so that does require more mastery and skill, and it does lead to a counterattack. Now when playing with multiple players, it can be difficult to get perfect guards at times, because sometimes the monster will just randomly not attack you. So certain attacks, the monster has to like aim and stuff, and maybe to like change targets and switch to someone else. So usually when playing with other players, I find that perfect guard can be harder to pull off, just because the monster's attention is usually not on you. Another nice thing about Sword and Shield is if you hit your guard button and item use at the same time, while your weapon is out, you can actually quickly use an item. So that is very good to know for healing. You have a basic alternate attack, which is right click, circle, or B. And essentially what that does is it's a different series of attacks. You can also do, if you're moving, you can do like a shield bash combo that actually can stun. So if you hit a monster in the face, like let's say a monster hasn't been stunned. Now we have a hammer on our team, so the monster is getting stunned. But if you don't have a hammer on your team or you're soloing, when the monster's down, you can start using your forward alternate attack combo to start doing stun damage. And that is a 3-hit combo. So you can do alt fire, alt fire, alt fire, and then alt plus primary to do spinning reaper, which is an additional hit. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So that's like the basic combo for that. And then you also have a step back combo where you hold in alt fire and back while in focus mode, and then you can release, and if you hit, you will go high. So I'm going to use this to close distance gap. Do the alt fire combo. You have to land it though, and then you can go up, and then you have different moves in that. So for example, if I hit, and then I do primary and secondary, you do this cool like plunging stab that does decent damage. And this can also be used to dodge a monster, and you can mount with this if you just use like primary fire. So like after you get the hit, you can just use primary fire to do a slash to go for a mount. Another thing you can do is aim focus strikes while you are in the air, allowing you to get hard to reach wounds, like that wound on the back of this right out here. Another thing to know is the ledges. If you do a sliding swipe into like a ledge, like a ledge you can step up, it'll kind of like rise. There's also an advancing slash, which is just primary and secondary. And it does that. So it's kind of nice. It's like a little advancing move. However, I do think it's worse than the slide attack. I'll show you why. So like distance wise, let's stand like on this little rock formation here. So that's where we end up. Same rock formation. We end up a little bit farther away. So if you want more distance and iframes and damage, sliding slash is just, or sliding swipe is just better. It's 2 hits. I'll show the damage. There you go. Way more damage. That's like hitting a wound though. Let's stat this wound. So here's like the damage of sliding slash versus advancing. Significantly more damage. You have iframes. It's just better. I don't think advancing slash really matters. You could argue maybe it's faster, but actually it's kind of not because there's recovery time on it. So I kind of don't recommend running it ever, and I would just always do sliding slash. It covers more distance and does more damage and gives you iframes. So I don't see the point of advancing slash right now. So in my mind, there's 2 major playstyles for Sword and Shield. There's the more perfect guard, heavy playstyle where you go for counter slashes, pressure, you just stay on top of the monster's face and just tank attacks with perfect guard. This can be higher risk, especially when you are playing in a group. Sometimes the monster just does random things and will just randomly attack you out of nowhere, like he'll switch from you to an ally and vice versa. So it can be kind of unpredictable. And there's also the more evasion heavy playstyle where you use your movement and use iframes and dodges and just throw in guards when you think you're gonna get hit to just like reduce damage, to just kind of like rotate around the monster and then go for wounds. Now I recommend switching between them when it makes sense, and then always go for wounds when the monster is doing big dangerous attacks that you want to interrupt. This also allows you to reduce damage taken because then you're not getting hit while you're going for wounds. So typically what I like to do is try to create wounds, find wounds, and then just go for general damage. Weave in charge chop when I can, which is primary and secondary fire. And then if a monster gets downed, so let me show you like some damage output here. So like if a monster is downed and I do the perfect slash combo, or perfect rush combo, and I do this, and then I do that, and then if I can get in another charge chop afterwards, you can do pretty good damage. Alternatively, you can just spam primary, and it's not bad damage. Another thing to note too is, as always, the Corrupted Mantle is good for damage, so if you want to just spike your damage, if you know a monster well, and you feel pretty confident, even if you're like joining a group, you will get significantly bigger damage by equipping this and running this. So this can be huge damage boon A lot of people might be turned off by Sword and Shield because of its relative damage output. Its damage output is good because it's consistent. You're not dealing huge damage per hit, but you're usually always attacking and rotating around, and your commitment is so low. Like, you can always just block really quick and then resume attacking. That's really where this weapon shines. And then, of course, you can go for stuns with your alternate into the Spinning Reaper, and then you can go for dodges when it makes sense. So it's really up to you when you want to go for a dodge or when you want to go for a perfect guard. Some attacks, even if you perfect guard them, you still take damage. So typically huge wind-up attacks that have like AoE effects, like fire and stuff, tend to not be fully like nullifiable in terms of damage. So you usually would want to like dodge and then start like repositioning out of that. Now when fighting with a team, you can easily just go for wounds and attack the monster's limbs. And it's pretty safe, and if the monster starts focusing you, start dodging or guarding. And you can always preemptively guard. Like, let's say you've been attacking for like a few hits, and you don't know what the monster does, and it starts moving frantically. Usually it's about to do an attack, so you can just kind of throw a guard in really quick. Especially at the end of a combo, you can just guard preemptively. Just to kind of keep your... You can always like interrupt combos with guard pretty quickly. So like, if you see a big attack coming, this weapon is very forgiving in terms of low commitment. So you basically have low commitment positionally, low commitment in terms of attack animation, and you have low commitment for all of your moves. And the only high commitment thing you can really do is if you do a backstep combo into Perfect Rush and you just commit to the Perfect Rush, and then you just keep going for this. I only really recommend doing this against downed monsters because otherwise what will probably happen is the monster will move. Like, even if you don't even get hit, the monster's probably just going to move, and then you're just gonna whiff. So, like, unless you know exactly, like, when the monster is stationary, you really can't get those Perfect Rush combos off, and your DPS is usually decent just by running, you know, spamming M1, then spamming M2 when you're going for stuns. You want to hold forward, so it's the 3 hit, and then primary, secondary, into spinning. Oh yeah, to wrap up, there is one more thing I didn't cover. It's the backstep. It's the back step into the right click. Sorry. So back step release and then right click does a big shield bash, the falling bash. You can hit the monster's head with this to get big stun in. So like, let's say you back step to dodge an attack. Go for the head, boom, that can stun it. So that can be useful to know. That's pretty much it for Sword and Shield. Definitely like and subscribe if you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.